Bro, I don't even know where to start with this one. Imagine being the son of a UFC legend, training to be a pro fighter, getting all this hype, and then the biggest headline attached to your name is that you just got arrested after a wrestling show because you went absolutely berserk and nearly killed the dude. That's exactly what's happening with Rampage Jackson, Rampage Jackson's son. And listen, the video of this attack shocked the whole internet, but the fallout, man, it's even crazier. UFC fighters, ex-champions, boxers, wrestlers, everybody's reacting, and they're not holding back. Some are calling for prison. Others are saying give the kid a second chance. And a few are pointing fingers at the culture of live streaming that fueled this entire meltdown. Today, I'm breaking down all the fighter reactions, the split opinions, and what this means for Raj's future in MMA. Trust me, you're gonna wanna stick around for this one, because this is hands down one of the wildest combat sports stories of the year. Alright, before we even get into the reactions, let's rewind. Here's what actually went down. Raja Jackson, 25 years old, son of Quinton Rampage Jackson, was at a small indie wrestling event in Los Angeles. This wasn't WWE, this wasn't AEW, this was a local promotion run by Rikishi's crew, Nox Pro Wrestling. Raja's been training MMA, streaming on Kick, trying to build his name. And during this event, he ends up backstage with wrestlers. Cameras rolling, chat watching, everything. One of the wrestlers, Psycho Stu, a US Army vet who uses wrestling to cope with PTSD, hits Raja with a work beer can. Now in pro wrestling, that's theater. It's meant to look real, but it's a gimmick. The problem? Raja wasn't in on the joke. He wasn't a wrestler. He wasn't trained in how to sell it, and he clearly didn't appreciate it. At first, he's heated, but the wrestler apologizes multiple times. That should have been the end of it, but instead, later on, they let Raja into the ring, and that's where it went completely off the rails. Raja shoots in, slams Stu on his head with a legit takedown, and unleashes like 20 punches while the guy is out cold. Not worked punches, real MMA shots. The crowd's horrified, the wrestlers don't know what's real, and by the time people pull him off, the damage is done.
Martial arts are built on respect, control, and knowing when not to use violence.
Raja did the opposite, and the MMA community couldn't stay quiet about it. Let's start with Kevin Lee. He didn't hold back. He said, he's gotta go to prison. Dog messed up. I love Rampage, but turn your son in. He gotta go lie down for a little bit. If it were my son, that's what I'd tell him. You're a grown man. No self-control over your emotions. That's Kevin Lee raw and unfiltered. He's basically saying this isn't a teachable moment. This isn't a slap on the wrist. This is prison time. And I respect it because he's cutting through the noise. Raja's not a teenager. He's 25, old enough to know better. And Kevin's saying flat out, age, legacy, none of it matters. If you do something like that, you face real consequences. Then you've got Ben Askren, Olympian, former Bellator and One champ, UFC veteran. He breaks it down more technically. Askren said, 22 punches after a man is unconscious could do serious long-term damage. Also, he would have done more had he not been stopped. That's terrifying when you think about it. Ben's not exaggerating either. Those punches weren't pulled. And when you've got a trained fighter delivering them to someone defenseless, that's where it crosses from assault into attempted murder territory. Ben's basically saying this wasn't a scuffle. It was a potentially life-changing beatdown. And the scary part? He wasn't stopping until people forced him to. Ryan Garcia, the boxer, had a completely different angle. He said, needs to be a serious conversation about streaming culture. It's getting out of hand with what people are willing to do while on stream. And honestly, he's right. Raja was live on Kick. His chat was egging him on. People calling him soft, saying he got punked when Stu hit him with the beer can. That pressure to stand on business in front of your audience is real. The streaming culture rewards shocking moments, crazy clips, viral content, and Raja clearly fed into that. Ryan's pointing at the bigger picture. Yeah, Raja's responsible, but this whole new era of live stream clout chasing is dangerous. We've seen it in IRL streams before. Now it's bleeding into combat sports. Derek Brunson came in with a balanced but firm take. He said, that should have never happened. At the end of the day, I hope the wrestler is okay. For Raja, your actions were out of line. You're gonna have to deal with big boy consequences for this one. That's classic Brunson. He's not yelling, he's not throwing insults, he's just being direct. Sympathy for the victim, but no excuses for Raja. Basically saying, welcome to adulthood. Your choices have consequences. And honestly, that kind of voice might be the one Raja needs most right now.
Because outrage is easy to dismiss, but accountability? That's unavoidable. Now, of course, Sean Strickland couldn't resist chiming in, and shocker, his take caused a stir. Strickland said Raja shouldn't go to prison. His reasoning? Prison should always be a last resort. He even admitted he almost served 5-6 years himself, and that rehabilitation, not jail, was what turned his life around. On one hand, I get it. Strickland speaking from personal experience. On the other, coming from a guy suspended for sucker punching someone at an MMA event, maybe not the best spokesperson for impulse control. Still, it highlights the split. Some fighters believe throwing Raja in prison won't fix him. It'll just make him worse. Others think that's the only way he'll learn. It didn't stop there though. A bunch of other fighters chimed in too. Bilal Muhammad called it embarrassing for the sport and said Raja needs to be banned from ever fighting professionally again. Chris Curtis labeled it psychotic behavior and added, that wasn't a fight.
That was an assault on a guy who didn't know what was happening. Even guys outside the UFC, like pro wrestler turned MMA fighter Tom Lawler, slammed it, saying, "This makes everyone in combat sports look bad." You can feel the disgust across the board. Nobody's defending Raja. Some might argue about how to punish him, but nobody's excusing what happened. And then you've got the wrestling community. WWE star Rusev, now Miro, came out defending Psycho Stu. He said, "I've trained with him for 15 years. He's a vet, an amazing guy. There's no excuse for this." Others called it the worst incident they've ever seen at a wrestling show. And honestly, they've got every right to be pissed. Wrestling is about performance, theater, creating an illusion of violence. Raja shattered that illusion and nearly killed someone. It's not just an attack, it's a betrayal of what wrestling is supposed to be. Here's why this story is bigger than just one guy losing control. It raises questions for all of combat sports. What happens when fighters, who are trained weapons, lose their discipline outside the cage? What responsibility do promotions have when they blur the line between entertainment and reality? And how dangerous has streaming culture become, where fighters are now performing for chat rooms instead of focusing on respect and safety? Each fighter reaction pointed to a different piece of the puzzle. Kevin Lee says it's about consequences. Ben Askren says it's about damage. Ryan Garcia says it's about streaming. Brunson says it's about maturity. Strickland says it's about rehabilitation. And together, it paints a picture of a sport that's at a crossroads. So what's next? Right now, Raja is reportedly being investigated. If charges are filed, it could be anything from aggravated assault to attempted. With the video evidence, it's hard to see him walking away from this without serious legal trouble. And let's be honest, his MMA career, pretty much done before it even started. Who's going to sign a guy who lost his cool this badly? Who's going to risk liability by putting him in a cage? Even if he avoids prison, his reputation is toast. And then there's Rampage. He tried to put out a statement saying his son thought it was part of the show, that he just had a concussion and that he hopes the victim recovers. But the way he framed it, talking about misinformation, didn't sit well with people. Because the footage is right there. Rampage is clearly trying to defend his son, but it came off like damage control. Fighters didn't go at Rampage directly, but you can tell people expected a stronger condemnation. At the end of the day though, Raja's 25. This isn't on his dad. This was his choice. So here's the bottom line. The MMA community is unanimous in one thing. What Raja did was wrong. The split is in how to handle it. Some say prison, some say ban, some say rehab, but no one is letting this slide. And honestly, that's how it should be. Rampage Jackson had a chance to carry his father's legacy, to build a name in MMA, to prove himself. Instead, the headline attached to his name is that he brutally assaulted a pro wrestler in front of a live crowd and a streaming audience. And now, fighters are basically writing his future for him, either prison time or a permanent stain on his career. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you think Raja should go to prison? Do you agree with Strickland that rehab is the better path? Or should he just be banned from combat sports altogether? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.